Can you see my screen, Josh?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect.
Red Jake's buddy.
Ryan just texted me he's going to be out in a minute. Perfect. All righty. Let's get started here. So, Josh, I want to thank you for coming on board with us today to talk about this particular endpoint security solution of ours here at Awareness Technology. But why don't you tell me a little bit about your organization and currently what you guys are doing from an endpoint security perspective, and let's see how we can help you with that. So we can talk about what you guys are doing internally, what problems you're potentially looking to solve at the endpoints, and I guess we'll just take it from there.
All right, we're a facility about 700 employees. We got around 500 to 150 in computer, nursing cards, that kind of thing that we deal with. We're currently adding on a 75,000 square foot building with a new nursing area with dialysis, another ventilator wing. We have currently 100 ventilator patients that are long-term care. They're here unless occasionally we have one that'll wean. We have a few babies that come in home, but yeah, that's our main focus here is the ventilator patients.
Ventilator patients, okay.
Yep,
and
system center endpoint protection currently.
I didn't catch that part a little bit earlier because your audio was breaking up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How many endpoints are you guys currently managing within your environment?
550.
550. Okay. And what type of system is this? Is this on a Windows-based system?
Yes, we do not have anything. Well, we have maybe a handful of iPads that are used throughout the facility, but 99% of our PCs are Windows 7. We can't migrate to Windows 10 yet. But yeah, Windows 7, 64-bit machines, around 550 of them.
Okay. And and obviously, because we're talking healthcare here, are you guys using a current solution to monitor HIPAA-related information from leaving these endpoints, protected health information, Social Security numbers, credit cards, plan beneficiary numbers, all that stuff? What are you guys currently doing around that?
We don't really have any way of telling if anything's leaving that way. I mean, we make the best effort to have every user, if they're emailing anything, password protect, but no way to actively tell.
Interesting. Okay. What currently to do admin work on these devices? What are you guys currently using? Are you using TeamViewer, LogMeIn? What types of network tools are you guys currently deploying?
To connect, for us, IT support, to connect to the workstations, we use the system center, whatever you want to call it there, console. Let me find it on my PC here.
Like a system console?
The config manager, that manages all the devices. I've been using it, yeah.
Perfect. So I guess the main goal of our call today is we're going to show you the product. We're going to break it down in terms of some very specific use cases. One of the use cases I'm going to articulate is how we can monitor and track HIPAA-related information from leaving these endpoints. We'll also focus on a discussion regarding zero-day threats and application control and some of our other unique capabilities, which essentially add an extra layer of much-needed security to these target endpoints. But in any event, that's good. That's excellent. So, again, I want to thank you and Ron for joining me today. My name is Brian Lambert. I am the Director strategic business development for awareness technologies, and we're going to be talking about our InterGuard endpoint security office. So just a little bit about our company. We've been around since 2002, 14 years in existence, headquarters in Westport, Connecticut, about 40 miles east of New York City. And this is a uniquely architected solution that you're going to see with three principles in mind. One, it's complete, four technologies in one to solve the whole dynamic of insider threats at the endpoint device level, both physical users and maybe users who have commandeered legitimate credentials to do bad things. We'll talk about that more in detail in a second. Very easy to use, very easy to deploy. We're going to show you some active examples of that shortly. Over 10,000 customers in numerous vertical markets across the globe. We have over 150 new corporate clients we have per month. We have a strategic relationship with Fintech as a distribution element, but that's for Ron and myself to work out on the back end. So moving forward. We talk about key internal threats, and again, we're going to focus just a little on the HIPAA side of things, but this can also be applicable to looking at employee activity, productivity. The number one, and we'll go through some of these statistics later on, but one of the main threat factors, believe it or not, this has been borne out by the research at the endpoint level, how networks become compromised in the first place is simply user error, employee mistakes, going to inappropriate websites, doing things that they shouldn't be doing at the endpoint that could potentially compromise your systems, compromise your data, and also compromise productivity. So we want to be able to monitor that and look at that with our particular solution. Zero-day threats, we're going to talk about some very specific use cases here, but the theme with endpoint providers lately is, okay, let's create a scenario where we have privileged application management where somebody logs in with their local admin credentials, and maybe we slap a sandbox onto it, which, sandboxes today, because there's so many different sandboxing vendors out there, it's like dirty laundry, okay? Everybody seems to be wanting to slap a sandbox on an endpoint appliance, but at the end of the day, what can we do which is unique to our offering? And we're going to go through some of that later on to prevent these bad actors from gaining control of software using legitimate credentials to do bad things, conduct data exfiltration operations. We'll talk about that. We have a wholly home-baked data loss prevention module, which can do a lot of different things. We'll protect critical information based on wildcard queries that we can set up via custom security policies based on user group, based on NetBIOS group. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. And of course, obviously, as I've been alluding to, this is a perfect product to significantly round out your internal IT forensics investigation protocols to prevent a HIPAA breach, as an example. A lot of times, customers are engaging us because they'll load Sophos or they'll load McAfee on their endpoints, and they'll have the antivirus piece and the IDS signature policies via these applications at the endpoint level. But all these products essentially are doing one thing: they're stopping an attack. They're preventing this software from being able to execute. But if a breach happened and it started at the endpoint, the customer is not going to necessarily know the who, what, where, and how of an attack. Okay, and that's where our product comes into play, because we have eyes and activity at the endpoint level. We can monitor what's going on. We can monitor the whole range of things that occur when somebody logs into a device and starts doing work on it, both legitimate and illegitimate. So we'll show you a little bit of that shortly. So some facts here to continue to round out our argument. I like this statistic. It's quite specific. 80.4% of 2,063 people surveyed waste time on non-work-related activities, which is really interesting.
Figured it might be higher than that, to be honest.
I know, right? 60% of exiting employees walk out with company information, which is really cool. Okay. Actually, not really cool. It's really cool for us from the standpoint that we can solve these types of situations from occurring in the first place. Laptop slash workstation risks due to insider error, lack of judgment. That means employee errors that lead to data loss is a top threat at 56% survey. I was recently at Exchange 2016, big partner event down in San Antonio. I think Ron was there as well, if I'm correct, if memory serves. It's a Friday, by the way. In any event, I was in a talk hosted by IDC Research, and they do a number of different surveys into the partner community to see what customers are telling them are some of the latest and greatest threat vectors they're encountering. And this seems to be one of the concerns that CIOs and information security teams have, which is trumping a lot of other things. And this makes sense from our perspective because, again, a lot of these things are happening due to simply user error or users not understanding current information security policies, and we can help out with that. Insiders are responsible for 70% of security incidents that incur losses. And we'd already talked about this. We're going to go into detail a little bit more regarding this. So the number 2 threat vector at the endpoint behind the malware inspections are hackers gaining credentials to legitimate network tools. So Ron, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, man, I'm sorry. I'm here.
Okay. Cool. Excellent. Glad to have you on board. So again, this is a big talking point at that IDC research talk. It kind of surprised me that it was number 2 threat vector, although my research had been pointing to this, a number of cyber weapons reports which have come out recently. But yeah, that is the number 2 threat vector behind the malware infection exploits that CIOs and information security teams are worried about at the endpoint. So we have here, just as one snapshot of this, and this applies to other tools. Oops, I'm going off my chair again here. This applies regarding other tools as well, or it's an SSH client like Secure CRT or PuTTY as an example. But here are the top 5 remote desktop tools exploited by hackers. TeamViewer being number 1 at 37% of the time, and that's primarily due to the reason that the company has not yet patched a 0-day vulnerability in the Windows browser pass view executable, which is the primary way by which presenters pass credentials back and forth between them in one of these sessions. LibNC is number 2. RAD Log Me In at 4% as an example. We just talked to a customer that uses RAD Log Me In. We'll probably use that as an example as well to bolster this argument. But again, the hackers, whether from a phishing or spear phishing attack, gain these credentials, they can do a lot of damage, and we have a very unique way of monitoring and mitigating these types of exploits. 600,000 laptops are lost or stolen annually in the U.S. Greater than 3% are recovered. For us, especially for remote employees, we have a tool called Laptop Cop, which allows somebody to remote into the target device and pull compromising or confidential data or compromised data off of these endpoints without the user knowing it's happened. We can also brick the device as well. We'll talk about that a little bit further down the line with our presentation here. 68% of healthcare data breaches are due to device theft or loss. So I just alluded to that right now with our module. If the device is lost, we can remote in with our agents installed on it and pull that data off of it. And also brick the device as well by wiping the operating system. 35 states have enacted security breach notification laws. That's essential with our product because we can set up very customized policies, which you're going to see shortly, and then set up notifications based on wildcard query and alert word that instantaneously will alert the appropriate team members that something's happening here. So that's an important point because, again, in addition to the who, what, where, and how of an attack or these types of situations occurring in the first place, the information security people also want to know immediately that something's going on, and we can do that. So 62% of CIOs believe data leakage from endpoints to be a top driver of their security spending. 1 out of 2 companies lose data on USB drives. Fear of data loss is a top information security challenge for the next 12 months, according to 451 research. And data loss prevention is second behind firewall management as one of the top information security projects over the next 12 months. Okay, and there's a big reason for this. And again, I've seen this trend over the past year or so. But you know, when customers have done these huge engagements, when they bought like $500,000 worth of FortiGate firewalls or Palo Altos, they're really not going to be inclined 2-3 years down the line to do a rip and replace all these systems. They made a significant investment in these purchases in the first place. And CIOs are now starting to look at other ways to bolster their entire security posture from soup to nuts. And a lot of that is being driven by the fact that people are looking at what Google's doing. They moved over to Forrester Research's zero trust model of information security, which means, essentially speaking, that we don't trust any single asset inside or outside our organization for a particular piece of our security posture. So we don't trust the IDS signature policies in the firewall 100% of the time. We don't trust the DLP policies in the firewall 100% of the time. We don't trust the SSL packet inspection on an A10 load balancer 100% of the time to prevent new ransomware infections. So again, by looking at it from this perspective, the endpoint becomes critical, because by applying many different layers of powerful next-gen technology at the endpoint layer, in addition to your antivirus vendor, okay, we create a scenario where hackers would have to commandeer many different devices, many different applications, in order to ever gain enough persistence to do any kind of real damage inside of the network. It's just not going to happen. So the frontline defense really is the key here, okay, when we're talking about the target device or endpoints being the gateway to being able to do much more serious things. And we have to monitor what's going on there. So before I move on, any questions about what I've brought to the table so far?
No, not so far.
Excellent. So let's talk about the first 15 years of security. You all know this. Individual solutions morphed into the unified threat management appliance. And again, you know, we talk about faster and faster firewalls, 100 gig throughput, so on and so forth, talking about the next gen firewalls, the Fortinets and Palos of the world. But again, you know, what our product does is, you know, we're talking about this endpoint scenario as being the primary gateway by which these infections happen. Our solution is quite robust. We have 4 different technologies merged into one product to be able to solve this whole concept of insider threats, both physical users and you know, those users who have gained credentials to do nefarious things. That and data leakage as well as a top driver of what the capability to our solution has being brought to the table here. So 4 technologies, one download, one interface, and we talked about some of these principles already. We're going to solve the entire internal threat problem at the endpoint level. One key caveat here is our solution, when our agents are deployed, and you can see that shortly, is that they work both on and off network. So even if the device loses its Wi-Fi signal and goes out the primary domain, once a policy is deployed, the agents are blocking, the agents are recording based upon the parameters that you have set up. Once a Wi-Fi signal is restored, that data will be sent back up to the cloud, or if you're hosting it yourself, and that gets back into our next, or moves right into our next point here, that we have 3 different deployment options. For guys like you, you probably might want to host this internally using a Windows Enterprise Service SQL backend database 2008 or greater, because of the sensitive nature of patient health information. For our partners, we have a MSSP model where they can host it for you, and for SMB customers, they can load this, deploy this via our cloud at AWS. So very easy to deploy, very easy to configure and use. So what I'm going to do now is just talk a little bit about how easy it is to deploy these agents here, just to set up a scenario on that. So again, each packet of agents downloads and installs onto each workstation. So let's just get out of here real quick, and let's get into our NetDeploy application now. So we have another management console. I'm not going to show you right now for purposes of time, just to make sure the presentation is concise as possible here. But we can literally click a button which creates a dynamic silent installation executable. And you're going to put that onto a protected folder onto your management workstation here. And then you're going to pull up our NetDeploy application. Okay. Give me 1 second. And essentially speaking, you're going to scan your existing Active Directory forest, okay, for the folder where all the target devices are, based on NetBIOS label. So we can just pull these target devices down based on NetBIOS into the lower pane, okay, highlight each target device, choose the installer, which is going to be that silent installation executable that we talked about. I didn't pull one up here, not necessary. We hit start deployment, and then once the agents have been successfully installed onto each target device, okay, that we're looking to monitor, a green check mark will occur next to each event log here in the lower pane. So assuming that we have successfully installed our agents onto the target devices in question, let me just minimize this real quick. Everybody can see my screen, correct?
Yep.
All right, perfect. I could remote in, depending upon what RDP or admin tool you're using. I can remote in with a hotkey sequence, okay, afterwards. Just take a look at what actually is on here now, okay? So these modules are the guys doing all the work to monitor this activity at the endpoint level. So other modules which do some very specific things. The net here is that we're able to have a Windows, a bird's eye view on all the activity that's being conducted on this target workstation, okay? Or VDI, by the way. We'll talk about that a little bit because we work in Zen Desktop and vSphere involved. We have an application monitor here, a module which can terminate applications. We alluded to this earlier, creating custom groups based on least privilege, blocking people from being able to use applications they shouldn't be, okay? Why would somebody in sales and marketing, as an example, want to pull up a LogMeIn or TeamViewer session, okay? We have a file monitor agent, which based on UNC path can monitor what happens to a particular file folder or root folder, all the activity, all the files in there. We can monitor that based on policy. We have a module which records all activity in Google Chrome, Internet Explorer. We pull down all the keystrokes of the user in question, and I'll be talking about this shortly, but the keystroke thing is critical because we can, with our product, if somebody's inside of an application, we can record frame-by-frame video of what they're doing, but also if it's somebody who had commandeered legitimate credentials and we're trying to execute malicious scripts to target critical assets like the domain controller, we will have a record of that metadata, okay? So again, the who, what, where, and how of a particular attack, the progression is what we want to see here, and that's what our product can bring to the table here. We monitor everything in Firefox. We can scan emails based on our Outlook monitor, okay, and of course we can scan the webmail stuff because we monitor the web browser applications. We can take screenshots based on alert word of somebody's doing a chat, email, the browser as an example. And we monitor the chat applications like Skype, like MSN Messenger. So again, obviously, we want to be able to look at all this stuff. Somebody tries to send out their social security numbers via a Skype chat session. We want to be able to look at that type of activity and monitor it and set up alerts accordingly. So these are the agents that are doing all the work here, and they are now configured to send up data back to our cloud. But again, getting back to my presentation here real quick, if I just start this in the current slide. So now we know what the agents are and that they're installed on these workstations. Each workstation is now protected with our monitoring capability. The agents, by the way, are uploading their data over SSL. And we also have a proprietary layer of AES encryption built into this product as well. So we are encrypting the data locally to the target device, and then we're sending that back up via SSL. So there's many different layers of security built into this process here to prevent a man-in-the-middle attack from happening in the first place. So getting out of this now, before I pull up the management console, which you can log into via any browser you choose, Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, whatever. Any questions on what you've seen so far? So we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about some arguments for our products. Okay, we built the use case around that. We talked about the deployment. Any questions on what you've seen so far?
No.
Perfect. So let's look at the management console. So here's our test drive unit, and I'm just going to be toggling back and forth because I have my primary demo account. It doesn't have a lot of data on it. This one does, so we're going to be primarily using this as a way to show some of the data because it's been running for an awfully long time, and my machine is very boring. I really don't do much on it, but because I have another unit here. But in any event, let's talk about this a little bit here. So here is our control console here, and this is divided up into 4 primary modules. One where the data is stored for easy viewing. We have a notifications pane, our data loss prevention module here, and our laptop cop data deletion and recovery tool, which also has a built-in geolocation load check capability. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But in the event, let's take a look at some of the information we pulled on here, these agents reporting. And again, this can be very specific based on policy creation that we're going to be showing you shortly in a few different scenarios. The first one I'm going to take a look at here is creating a custom policy to monitor HIPAA-related information, and we'll talk about that zero-day threat angle and a couple of other things. But in any event, so from an email perspective, we pull down the event logs. As you can see, we can add additional columns to this, which they're already here. Sent and received, there's another one that can be added. And group means the group monitoring group. Now that monitoring group can be a customized group that I'm going to show you how we create shortly, or it could be one of the Active Directory groups that your organization has already partitioned out. Okay, so we can, simply speaking, use that group with the users in it based on the AD credentials and start monitoring their activity for very specific pieces of information. So in this case, I'll use this as a very generic term, alert words, okay, Dave Miller. I don't know why they chose Dave Miller for this, but in any event, in this particular event log, we will have an alert set up scanning for this metadata, and we'll see the actual metadata of the email message that was sent, so that's important to keep that in mind as well, okay? If any attachments are sent out via Outlook, we can actually pull that down. That'll be reflected here, but also this event will also be reflected back here if there was a policy violation, and I'll get to that a little bit later on. But that's good because we can easily reference the information here, then go back later on into our data loss prevention module and take a look at the information in that product as well. But anyway, moving forward, here's our file user tracking module. We're going to talk about that a little bit, but essentially based on UNC path, we can monitor folders, root folders, to see what happens to sensitive information. We can see what happens to specified documents in that folder that we outlined. We can see here if we add additional columns to the group. We see the actual user based on AD credentials. We see the alert words that could also have been triggered, wildcard queries that we're scanning for. But most importantly here, we see the original file name. We see the new file names that's being monitored here, and that's important because we're talking about new malware infections. As you know, malware can sit and ran for a specified period of time. It doesn't have to deploy immediately. If you're monitoring a protected folder path and something starts happening to it, documents start moving, documents start changing their extension, you name it, this is a good tool to let you know that something's going on here. If you start seeing a flurry of activity in this event pane for this particular folder path that you're monitoring, you know that something's not good and you need to drill down into it a little bit more. So that's very important information to keep in mind. Some of the other things we can take a look at with this file tracking situation, based on the EDT, we can see what somebody downloads to their browser, login events. You can see the device, obviously, that was logged into the IP address, the actual user, based on the actual user based on AD credentials. So you can see the actual remote host, okay, the device. So these are important things to keep in mind. It could also be important from a forensics perspective. If you had a hacker that remoted in to a target device, you'd actually have a record of the time and the date and time that occurred, as an example, the actual IP address, so you can then sync this up with some of the other data that you see from some of your other security tools internally. So geolocation, we'll talk about this. It's going to be a hallmark of our laptop top module, but essentially speaking, with this installed, we can monitor what's happening to this device, where it is in the world. We're pinging cell towers, Wi-Fi signals to accurately triangulate the position of this particular device. We see the history of this. It's not military-grade tracking via line of sight via satellite, but we're using cell towers and Wi-Fi signals to triangulate various positions here. So that's important to keep in mind. Everybody still hear me?
Yeah.
Can everybody still hear me?
Yeah.
Just wanted to
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect.
Can you hear me?
A little bit. Yeah, I can hear you. I had a little bit of an audio problem there for a second.
Okay.
Instant messaging and chats. Okay, this is where if we set up policies to scan for activity, important information, patient health information, as an example, leaving the endpoint via a Skype chat session, we will see these events here. Obviously, we see the alert words, okay, that have been highlighted based on policy. We're going to get to that in a second. This is where all the keystroke data is pulled down. It references back via application. Obviously, what we can see in here is some very specific things. We can see the formatted data and the raw data. Many different applications for this. Very critical information to have. The who, what, where, and how of the exploit we will be able to see. We can also, like I said, set up alert word policies. And if something happens, it's within an application, like TeamViewer, like Logmein, as an example, we'll be able to pull that data down. If this was a malicious script, okay, we can see this stuff as well. So also we see a list of the applications. And again, this is how you set it up via user group. So if you're monitoring a number of devices via NetBIOS delineation, or if you're looking at activity via user via AD credentials, okay, if it's user, it doesn't matter what device they log into with their local admin privileges, we'll still be able to track their activity from device to device or from VDI to VDI, which is really cool. In any event, when we look at application here, we can pull down the individual logs. So we'll get to this in a second with the zero-day stuff, but you can go right into the application here and see the events that happened here. We can add additional columns to this. We can see the duration, which is very important. How long somebody was in a particular application will be very important from a remediation perspective. The actual device, the actual group, the monitoring group that was set up for this. So very important information to be able to look at from a remediation perspective if something did happen. So now we're going to set up a scenario here. I'm going to talk about our screenshot alert word and smart camera capability and some very specific use cases here right now. Okay, so just stand by, but this is going to be really cool once we start setting the table here on this. So before I start moving into these specific use cases based around HIPAA, based upon zero-day threat prevention, and start creating these custom monitoring groups. Any questions on what you've seen so far, Josh?
No, I don't think so. You're explaining it pretty well.
Cool. So let's move on here. Let me go into my fully functioning module here, and let's talk about some things we need to do when we set up a policy, okay? So we're going to take this in a step-by-step fashion. So if we're talking about HIPAA information, let me just pull up this website because this is important. You know all the parameters around this and how critical this is. But let's go to HIPAA.com. And let's go to protected health information, PHI information. Okay. So what are the things what are the pieces of information that we need to protect inside of an organization like yours? So obviously the standard stuff, name, address, phone numbers, date of birth, social security number, email address, medical record numbers, health plan beneficiary numbers. Okay, account numbers, which could be very specific to your organization. Okay, depending upon what entity we're talking about here. Okay, so specific URLs, which can be very important as well. So I'm just going to throw out a couple of scenarios here, but let's start by creating a policy, okay, to monitor if this PHI information is leaving the endpoint, okay? If this type of stuff is being deployed at the endpoint, and we need to understand the nature of that type of activity. So let's go here, and let's go to create an alert word first. That's going to be a good place to start when we create these policies. So essentially speaking, we've already done this a couple of times today, but I'm going to do it again for you because obviously it's always good to go through this and break the steps down. So I'm going to first create a group category container, okay? And I'm going to call this PHI monitor, okay? Called PHI monitor, okay? I'm just going to search for it here. There we go. I already created one earlier. Very good. So we've created our group category container in it, and we're going to add some alert words to it right now, okay? Now, we have some pre-populated regular expressions. We don't know what these are. They dynamically scan for specific content via an algorithm, okay? So obviously, we're going to put Social Security number loose in here. We're going to check that. We're going to add Social Security number strict. That's already in here. As you can see, we're creating some a very powerful policy right now as we speak. All this stuff can go in here. Phone number, we can scan for that. The list goes on and on. We can add some more capabilities here. Now, if there is a custom regex expression that you want to create for this monitoring group, for instance, if there was a specific methodology upon which you guys, created account numbers as an example, well, then you could use a tool like this, okay, which is called a regex expression generator. This product is called Regex Buddy as an example. Create the expression in here, give this to our team, and they will whitelist it in our software. And then what will happen is when you go to create or populate this category, it'll appear here as an example, okay? So you create the expression using third-party tool. We will then upload that whitelist that for you as an example, okay? Because again, it's impossible for us to put millions upon millions of regex expressions in our tool. But again, there is a way to customize this. So that's how we create alert words. That's how we create a methodology to scan for wildcard queries for our product. Now, we created an alert word. Now what are we going to do here? Okay, we have to create a monitoring group. Okay, now the monitoring group may already exist. Okay, via one group in our initial AD sync, a specific group we want to just use to basically to set up this policy, or we can create a custom group. So let's just create a custom group because I'm going to show you how easy it is to do. Let's go to add new groups. We're going to create our group container. So we're going to call it PHI monitor nurses as an example. As we all know, one of the main source of breaches or routes that this data leaves, believe it or not, we all know this, it's not good, but there could be bad actors within the healthcare staff that basically will try to steal this information and sell on the black market as an example. Fortunately, it happens. We all know this. So we're just going to monitor a group of nurses. Let's just say that. And simply speaking, we can do this two ways. So we can either do this by NetBIOS address, okay, via the device. I'll just pull that up here. Or we can do this via user. And we'll do this via user. Because again, in that type of a scenario, they're going to be logging into probably multiple devices with their local admin privileges. So we want to be able to track their progress amongst multiple devices in our environment. Okay. So let's just add that user to the group. And again, this is multiple users we can add, just one person. And now we've created our group. Very simple. Created our monitoring group. Created our alert word. What metadata are we going to scan for? Now we can go and create a monitoring policy. Okay. So we created our group. Let's go into settings here. Let's go into recording and blocking. And here, as you can see, is our group that we created. Very easy. Let's go to members. Let's just double check what users are in here. Very good. Go back to options. Now, again, we can get very specific with these options here. So for every engagement or every group that we create, we're not going to turn on all these things, obviously. Okay, we're going to toggle some stuff on. We're going to toggle some stuff off, and that's for us to be able to not capture all this data, but to basically allow us to make sense of the data we're capturing via these policies. So let's talk about what we're going to monitor here with this particular group, with this alert or category for the patient health information that we're monitoring here. So we're going to obviously record the emails. We're going to obviously toggle this to investigation mode because we don't want anybody to know that they're being monitored in the first place. We're going to record all Outlook email, record instant messaging and chat activity. We're going to pull down every keystroke, obviously. Recording the websites, probably not necessary for this policy. Okay? We're not recording the URLs per se. We're recording whether or not the metadata is correct. Recording the programs, probably not necessary because this is not an application-specific policy, but you can keep the toggle on there if you want to. Recording printer documents, if they try to send that stuff to a printer, yes. Network bandwidth is irrelevant. File tracking, we're not going to denote a UNC path that we're going to track, so we're going to turn this off right now. Logging events, yeah, important from a forensics perspective. Blocking websites, probably not. We'll get to the web filtering capability a little bit later on, showing you how easy it is. This is not a program application least privilege blocking policy we're talking about. We're talking about a HIPAA scanning protocol here. Smart camera screenshots, we're going to turn that off. We're going to keep alert screenshots on, okay? So we're going to go to settings here. Just back up real quick, 1 second. Save my changes. Now I'm going to have to do that again. So let's turn all this on. Hold on 1 second. Off, off, yes, off, off, on, off, off, off. Perfect. Let's save that policy. And now let's go to settings. So let's go in here and let's PCI alert. That's the alert where we set up here earlier. So we're going to basically just denote our trigger. And as you can see here, not only type, but view. So in the browser, in a chat vehicle, in Outlook as an example, we'll be able to, not only if they type this, but we're also going to be able to pull down a screenshot if they view this information, which is very key, okay? So we denoted that. And we're good to go. We set up our patient health information monitoring policy, okay, which is really cool, okay? So in any event, going back here, the last part we want to do is create an immediate notification to our InfoSec guys or our compliance people, as an example, that something happened here, okay? So very easy to do. Let's go to notifications now and create a new notification. Because again, if something's happening, you want to know that it's happening right then and there, right? Makes sense. And as this loads. Here, hold on 1 second. There we go. Okay. So let's go to alert word, because that's what we're looking for here. And we're going to name this report PHI monitor alert for the group that we created, okay, for those nurses. Okay. Next. We're going to add our alert word category, which is that PHI monitor we talked about earlier. Click next. I want an immediate notification. And we're going to assign this to our group that we already created. We can toggle down here. We can see the users based on AD credentials. Okay. Click next. Email. Add a recipient. whichever compliance officer is going to be in charge of managing this program. Add that. Click Next. I'll just review your changes. Report name, categories, alert words, time frame, real time, departments. Okay, we know what department and we know the users in them, and the recipient obviously is the email where this report is going to. That's it. Click Finish. And if a user in this group, okay, typed, viewed, whatever, okay, this protected information, health information we set up via our customer alert word category from earlier, you're going to get a notification of this activity. That is really cool. What do you think about that?
Well, I do have a question. That's pretty neat, but what kind of load does this add on your network typically?
The answer is let's start with a discussion about being able to find this in our task manager here. You can't find an instance of our agents running in Task Manager at all. It's a combination of an SVC host process and a system process, okay? Extensive testing over the years and also with a lot of integrators that I work with, their general consensus is under a heavy load, you're talking about probably about a max of about 2.7%, 2.8% CPU utilization overall. So we're not talking about a heavy load here. Okay, at most, we're talking about a greater load on the target machine. That would have to do if there's a ton of screenshots being taken down, especially running video, if you will, frame by frame activity being recorded and strung together in the progression. Okay, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. But the resource allocation for our products at the endpoint level is nominal at best. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Perfect. So any questions on that so far? I'm going to move into our next scenario. Good. No questions. Excellent.
Yeah, go ahead.
Perfect. So I'm going to use a application to talk about the zero-day threat thing, which there may be a utilization. Now I want to hearken this by saying the following, and you're going to see this shortly. If you guys have an executable that you're using in-house for these tools and it's not in our database, which you've seen a little bit, install it, you run it, a system ID will be reported back to our mother database, and then you'll be able to pull that up and create a blocking and a monitoring policy accordingly. But let's go back into this. So we're talking about what our product can do to help eliminate the threat of zero-day exploits, as an example. So let's go in and create another group policy, which is really important. But again, we might want to start with alert words, as an example. So I'm going to start this from scratch because we're creating some training videos based on this. So in any event, let me create a new category. So log me in is a RDP client, which is being exploited by hackers today, whether they grab these credentials via a phishing or spear phishing attack. They grab the credentials, they're legitimate, then they pull up a session on a target device inside of the network and start targeting critical assets like the domain controller or executing malicious scripts. So what we're going to do with this is break this down into two scenarios. One is going to be a policy for a specific department to block them from pulling up this application at this particular endpoint. The other one is going to be a policy that allows the IT admin team to be able to pull up this application, but we're going to monitor activity inside that application, okay, for a period of time, and also pull down the keystrokes, and also, by the way, create an alert notification system as well. Before I get started creating these two groups, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another alert word trigger mechanism, okay, to scan for it. So I'm just going to log me in, create a category for log me in. highlight that. And I already did this earlier, so we're just going to add that alert word to it. Very simple. That'll be critical for our notification system a little bit later on. So that's done. Now let's go to creating our custom group for this. So we have two groups we're going to create here for this. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to call this, let's see, log me in nurse, a floor nurse block as an example, I guess. Okay. So in case a hacker via a phishing campaign did gain legitimate credentials with a floor nurse's AD credential logging into a terminal with mobile blockers. So let's just use that as a scenario. Floor nurse block. And again, it's very easy as we walked you through before. We're just going to add our members. Now, again, we can do this via device, via NetBIOS, or user. I'm going to choose the user again. Again, it all depends upon how your environment is set up. Just refresh this for a second. Stand by. Okay. There we go. Add our user to the group. Now we created our blocking policy for logging into this particular group of people that we don't want to be able to pull up a log me in session. Why would they? Okay. So moving back over here, let's go to the settings now. Let's go to recording and blocking. Let's highlight our group with our users in. We want to set up this least privileged application blocking policy. They can, again, still log in with their local admin privileges, but again, we're going to be blocking their ability to pull up a log me in session via their permissions, which are going to be endpoint specific to your agents. Okay. So let's take a look at some things here. Obviously, we're going to keep the investigation mode on. And if you're wondering why this is blocked out, the reason is because in the past we learned our lesson. People would say, yeah, I want a full demo of the product. Okay. We would give them the ability to run an investigation mode. They'd do their investigating, and then they'd go radio silent dark on us, and we wouldn't get any orders for the product. So we turn that off because we don't rise to that real quick. So we give people a full demo. We just don't give them the ability to run it in full investigation mode because obviously we would like you to pay for it. So in any event, moving forward, for this particular policy, because it has nothing to do with email, we're going to toggle these off here. We're also going to toggle off the instant messaging chats. We're going to record all the keystrokes. That's something we always want to do. We're going to turn off the website aspect here. We are going to record the programs just in case, and that would be important because sometimes firewall rules, or because of a bug in the software and the operating system of the firewall operating system may not always block the appropriate programs that you have set up from a quality service rule perspective. And that will be important because if you're seeing that this group is being able to deploy log me in when you set up a blocking policy at the endpoint, but your firewalls are not responding properly, then you'll have an extra check on that. So that's important from a forensics piece there. We'll be able to block it, but your firewall rules, may not be set up properly, and if, without our particular product on the endpoint, they may not be able. You would not have a viewpoint necessarily into what was being blocked and what was not. You just set the policy up, but with ours, it gives you that extra layer of protection to be able to block these types of applications from running. So we're going to turn off printed documents. It's not necessary. Bandwidth is irrelevant. File tracking, we're not tracking the file, the documents in it via UNC. We're going to log in. We're going to record login events just in case, based on that other scenario I just threw out there. We're going to turn off blocking websites. Blocking programs is going to stay on. We're going to turn off, we're going to keep the alert word screenshots on just in case, again, as an extra check on problems with the firewall rules from a quality of service perspective. So let's go to block programs. Okay, let me hit save first on this. Save my work. And now, let's go to settings. Actually, let me back up here for a second. Yeah, it was like block programs. Perfect. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we've been deploying this over the years to thousands upon thousands of customers worldwide. So every single time an executable is run on a target device or our agents installed on it, there is a unique system ID which is created for that particular executable, and that is sent back up to our cloud and stored in our database. So I can tell you that every single possible application that is out there in the wild, there is a unique system identifier in our database to represent that application. But if by chance, if the application does not exist in our database, or you have a home brewed application that you put together for specific purposes, just run it, install it on the device with our agents on it, and a unique system identifier will be created for it, and that'll register in this database right here. So let's just search for log me in. Search. And my 1 second as it searches. Refresh this. Stand by 1 second. There we go. Choose log me in. I don't know what the current version of log me in is, but I'm sure it's in there. So we've highlighted our program that we want to block for this particular group. Now, next thing we have to do is just create a scheduled time to block this program for this particular group. So we're going to call this log me in. Floor nurse block. I think that's what we called it before. Okay. Add. And again, we probably want to block this. Maybe we'll block this, I don't know, 6 days out of the week. Maybe the IT admin team can go in there on Saturday night late when things are calm and basically go in there and do their work. But we'll keep Saturday open for now, and we'll select these days for 24 hours as an example to go into Saturday, and then select another block of time here, maybe block it from, I don't know, 12 a.m. to maybe 7 p.m. as an example. And new. So anyway, here's our policy that we created. So we're blocking it 24 hours a day, 6 days a week, and then we're giving the IT admin team maybe a 5-hour window on Saturday night to do some system maintenance on these target devices where agents are installed. So that's very good. So now we're going to block programs by time, highlight log me in, schedule time, and we're good to go. So now log me in will be blocked for this particular group. They'll still be able to log in via their local admin privileges, but they will not be able to pull up this application at the endpoint device where they're doing work on. And that's a very cool feature. We've been doing this for years, and there's been a number of other endpoint providers which have popped up recently which claim, you know, they do the privilege application management aspect, but you know, that's just one piece. They usually slap it with a sandbox. I mean, sandbox today, I mean, I've been selling sandboxes for years. Sandboxes have sort of become like dirty laundry in this industry. I mean, start with FireEye, then Fortinet. I was selling their sandbox solution for a while, so everybody's got sandbox. But what you're going to see next, not everybody can do at the endpoint. But what do you think about this particular feature set first?
Well, one question I was going to ask was, is there a way to temporarily bypass, like if, for me, for instance, if I need to do something during blocked, can you go in and bypass that from the endpoint, or do you have to go into the policy and change it there?
I didn't hear that last part. You're asking if somebody can bypass the policy that we just set up here?
If I can, for instance, if I need to for whatever reason, is there?
Oh, absolutely. This interface is cloud-based. Okay, so you can log in remotely wherever you want to. Okay, any browser you choose, log in. You can make these changes remotely. You can make changes to these policies. If you're in South Beach having a drink at the bar, you can, as long as you have an active Wi-Fi signal, you can go in and change these policies automatically. The user is never going to be able to make changes to these policies. Okay, you would have to obviously what's that?
Oh, I'm just saying what I'm meaning is if this policy just for example, log me in policies in place on this computer, and for whatever reason, me as IT staff needs to be working on the computer during hours where these are blocked, and unplanned needs to be able to connect through log me in. Is there a way to temporarily bypass that, or do you have to go into the?
No, there is a way to temporarily bypass that. So what we would do then on that scenario is we go back to our block of time. Okay.
Okay. You just go in there
and we can. What's that?
You just go in and edit the time that it's blocked by.
Yeah, or you can remove it for that particular area. So I mean, again, we can go in here and just remove it and do a wipe on it as an example. So yes, there is a way to do that.
Okay.
So does that answer the question?
Yeah, I got it.
Perfect. Scenario number 2 on this. So the next thing we want to do is when we're talking about, we talked about preventing a particular group of users who have no business pulling up this particular application in the first place from being able to access it. But the next thing is for our IT admin team who are going to use it, okay, in order to eliminate the threat factor, let's say, again, a nefarious actor through a targeted phishing campaign gain legitimate user credentials to log me in to then start conducting reconnaissance inside of your network. Well, no problem. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create another monitoring group here. And we're going to go into group management again. And we're going to create a custom group. We're going to call it log me in IT admin prime. Well, we'll just call, let's say, video and keystroke. Okay. So create the group. And what we might want to do this time is we might want to create to add the devices based on that BIOS descriptor. So we're just going to add that in there as an example. That way and again, if you wanted to, you could create another group to correspond to this based on user. But we can have 2 layers here. We can have one specifically based on that BIOS deal, one based on actual user credentials via AD. We'll just stick with that BIOS for now. So now you've got, going back, we've created our custom group, okay? And now let's go to recording and blocking servers again. And what we're going to do now is we're going to highlight the group we just created, the IT admin team, and we're going to set up a monitoring policy. Now, essentially, these are individual screenshots going to be taken, but they're strung together. They're strung together just like you would a frame-by-frame movie, if you will. Okay, and I want to get specific. I have, for my engineering teams as well. It's really not video. It's screenshots strung together. Yeah, I know, but it really is video. If you want to look at that, or an animation, or whatever term you want to call, You take 20 keyframes in Flash, it's still an animation or a video, whatever you want to call it. In any event, we're monitoring that activity. So in any event, so what are we going to do here? We want to double check our members. Our members are in there. In this case, it's in FBIOS via the devices. So we're going to obviously keep this on. Turn off emails, turn off all that stuff, chats, keystrokes we definitely want, okay? In case there are any malicious scripts that are executed during the sessions, we want to grab that data. Turn off the websites, record the programs, yes. Turn off for the documents, network bandwidth is irrelevant. File tracking, we're not denoting a UNC path. Login events, yes. We want to know when somebody logs into this application, duration, all that stuff, as we talked about earlier. Blocking websites, we're not going to be blocking programs this time, okay? And we're going to be keeping smart camera on the alert word screenshots off, because we're not taking the alert word screenshots based on this application, but rather the email, the chat, the browser as an example. But well, you know what? Let's just keep that off for now. There's a specific use case in that. I just want to keep it simple for this point in time. But in any event, smart camera screenshot. So now we're going to go in here to settings. We're going to search for our program. So again, log me in. We're scanning our database. It's in there. We know that. Add search result. Highlight. And now we're going to make some changes to the setting right here. Okay. So probably as a check, and we're not going to have to note too much disk space for it. It's just as maybe we just want to capture the first 10 minutes of the session as an example. Okay. All right. So we update that. Okay. We save the changes for this group. Okay, to save. So now with this particular group of ours, this IT admin group, okay, every single time they pull up a log me in session, okay, we're going to be pulling down the video, okay, of activity when they're inside the application. Now, let me go back to my test drive unit, okay. Actually, before I do that, let me set up a alert notification, okay, on this. So probably based on user behavior frequency, let's do that. Let's name it application. Let's see, log me in application report. Okay. Let's click next. Let's go to applications per day. Okay. Let's click next. We're going to make this a daily report. We're going to apply this to our IT admin group. We can just toggle down here and just, in this case, obviously, it's based on the BIOS of the machine, so it's not necessary to worry about that. So apply that to our group. Click next. Email alert, whoever the report's going to go to. Okay. So we know who did what, add that, who, what, where, and how. We know which ITM and or which NetBIOS devices belong. Users are using the application. Click next. Just toggle through your changes to make sure everything's good. Obviously, I want to change that, but obviously more than one application is used today. Obviously, time frame, departments, we know that, recipients, and email the report goes to. That's simple. So we created a notification on this. And now what we're going to do is going to take a look at what some of this data looks like here. So if one of your group members in the IT admin group pull up a log me in session, okay, event log will be pulled down for that. Simply speaking, go to the record, and as you can see, the triggers based on application are in the left-hand pane there. And then if this was a log me in session, recorded for the first 10 minutes, you'll be able to immediately know if something was not right, if you will. So that's pretty powerful. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah. Scarlet, who, what, where, and how. We'd have actually video. This was a exploit that was occurring. You would see the progression of the attacks using this application. Okay. Now, let's go back into the keystrokes. We also will be able to pull down the keystrokes of this application, which would be really cool. So again, sort of by application, let's say this was TeamViewer. We have all the TeamViewer keystroke related records, okay? And we'd have the formatted data and the raw data as well. So if this happened to be malicious, sort of the type of exploit, we'd have a record of that. The who, what, where, and how. Very cool. So before I move on, that's a discussion of that zero-day exploit prevention capability. Again, just to go over our steps here, okay? We had two groups. We had one where we are preventing the privileges to be able to pull up a logging session. The other one, we have a group of IT admin people, but we want to monitor activity of these sessions for the first 10 minutes just to make sure that it's not a situation where a nefarious party commandeered legitimate credentials and started doing things they shouldn't be doing inside the network. So any questions on that? And I'm going to be going over discussion of our web filtering capability, and I'm going to be talking about our data loss prevention and laptop cop, and we're zipping right along. But any questions on what you just saw so far?
No questions.
Cool. All right, so let's just talk about our web filtering module. Again, I'm doing this from a training perspective here today. So, again, the whole point around this is we're going to create a another policy here. Okay. There's just this one aspect of this. We'll just call this. Hold on a second. I'll go to my stand by. Let's just see, obviously, emergency room, endpoint, web monitor, if you will. Okay, so create our group first. All right, add our members. Probably want to get specific to the level of AD credentials here. Probably going to have to refresh this. Stand by 1 second. Here we go. Let our users be AD credentials. That way, if they log into multiple devices or endpoints, we'll be able to get a report on their activity. Okay. Now let's go to settings. Again, we created that group. We're going to go into reporting and blocking. So this is a web filtering policy. The design, again, based off that zero trust model we talked about earlier. We don't just trust the IDS signature policies in the firewall 100% of the time. We put another layer on it. And we're going to show you how we configure our web filtering module right now. So we have our users in there we're monitoring. Okay. And we're going to toggle off some settings here. So obviously emails we're going to toggle off. Message for chat. Quick keystroke, yeah, we told record that. Report websites, yes. Report programs off. Record documents off. Network bandwidth, not necessary probably, because you have all that stuff in the firewall. Okay. File tracking we're going to turn off because we're not going to know the UNC path. Blocking websites, yes. Turn off the block programs. Smart camera. Now we're going to keep these screenshots on. Okay. But that would be denoted if you're trying to track a specific website that they're going to. Okay. You may not want them to go to. So we'll just keep that on right now. So let's go to blocking websites and take a look at our web filtering module here. Okay. So as I alluded to before, this is a separate home-baked solution that we have created, complete with categorization IP reputation, that also allows you to upload databases of IP blacklist, and you can also whitelist applications, whitelist URLs as well. So obviously, in each one of these categories, this is a service where each IP address is analyzed by no fewer than 2 analysts to check for its validity in each appropriate category. So obviously, we can toggle here. We want to, obviously, from an IP reputation standpoint, make sure all the adult websites that have been tagged in our database are blocked at this particular endpoint or this particular user from being able to pull it up. And he's going to multiple devices. Again, this policy follows that user from device to device or VDI to VDIP as their AD credentials, okay? So we also will obviously want to, all the malicious IPs, banned IP addresses in our database, okay, which is constantly being updated, obviously, because it's a dynamic process here. We'll also highlight all that. And there are other categories as well. But again, if you wanted to, if your InfoSec team's policy is to, you know, keep a running database internally of all these banned IP addresses, well, via CSV, you can simply upload the IP addresses to our agent here, and they will start blocking from the endpoint. So an additional layer of IT reputation at the endpoint, completely decoupled from the firewall. I think that's really cool, and I think that's a really valuable addition when you're talking about, again, filling in the gaps with your security posture, especially at the endpoint, okay? Again, I talked earlier about the whitelisting capability. We can whitelist websites, okay? We can block all websites except on a specific list of websites. So if you're talking about, you know, access management, if you just want employees to just be able to log in to specific portals or gateways, then we can do that as well via this whitelisting capability. So any questions on that?
No. That looks like it does everything you need.
Perfect. So moving on here, now let's get into a discussion of our data loss prevention capability. We are zipping along. We're almost wrapping up the session here. Just everybody, you know, stand by with me. I'm trying to keep it as lively as possible. I learned from some really good sales engineers in my time, taught me a lot. So I'm trying to keep the pace as lively and as brisk as possible here. So let's talk about our data loss prevention model. So again, we talked about this in detail, and again, like I said, the key thing, it starts with denoting a group that we want to monitor here, okay? So from a time perspective, as I mentioned earlier, we can create a custom group, okay, where we put users into it via AD credentials or the NetBIOS delineation of the target device, okay, or during that initial sync, okay, when we use our NetDeploy application via Active Directory to push these agents out to the target devices via the NetBIOS address, okay, we can pull down one of our existing Active Directory groups, okay, and set up this data loss policy, okay, for the users in that group. That's what we're going to do right now. So we're just going to assume that this is a existing group via Active Directory that we're pulling down here, so we don't have to add members to that group, although we can, obviously. We click add and search for device or search for user, VAD. Okay, but we already have our existing group, okay? And we're now going to go into policy management, okay? So we're going to talk about some of the things we can do from a data leakage perspective here at the endpoint. So again, choose our group we talked about earlier, okay? And now we're going to add a policy, okay? There's 4 primary ways we do this, okay? So let's talk about email for a second, okay? Email, content, and attachments, okay? So let's go, we talked about that protected health information earlier, okay? We had the social security numbers, we had the, I think it was the health plan beneficiary numbers. Let's see, just toggle over here for a second. Oh, account numbers, excuse me, that's right. So we talked about the account number stuff. So we can go in here and we can block this information from being sent out via Outlook, from being sent out via webmail, because our module is embedded in these applications in the browser and Outlook as well. So basically speaking, we're going to choose email, contents, and attachments, and we're just going to select that custom trigger alert mechanism category that we created earlier. And obviously, we don't want any of this stuff flowing out, okay, for this particular group because it's very sensitive. We want it staying on the device. So we're just going to click Next. We're going to apply this to all email. Click Next, okay. Obviously, to our monitoring group that we created, that was, again, in our scenario right now, one of our pre-populated AD groups based upon the initial sync and deployment of our agents onto these target devices. So click Next. We're going to name the policy, okay? We're going to say patient health information, PHI, email block, okay? So description, PHI block, based on alert word, I guess, or query, alert query, we'll call it. Severity high. All right, now I'm going to keep it toggled at overridable, but the scenario would be no normally. I just want to show you what that means from an overridable perspective, okay? We're going to upload the content, naming the name of the policy and the metadata that tripped the policy up. And we can also toggle this to yes on the report aspect. That is if you have an employee you know is up to no good and you want to hang them and catch them in the act to allow for termination proceedings to occur as well as further litigation. You can allow this policy to run in stealth mode as well. But we'll keep this toggles now because I want you to see the alert pop-up that occurs accordingly here. So we're going to click Finish. Let's see that. Make it brief. Oh, here we go. Recipient email. That's important too. So in this module here, we can create the recipient email that's going to receive a immediate notification, okay, that this information is attempting to be sent out via this target endpoint device or via the user credentials. So that's very important. So enter your recipient email. Sorry about that. I haven't had enough coffee today. It is a Friday. Frequency immediately, and then click Finish. So if this information attempts to leave the endpoint via our data loss prevention policy, not only is it going to be blocked, but an immediate email alert is going to be sent to the compliance officer that this person is to exfiltrate this data from this endpoint, and then something can be done immediately about it, whatever internal company policies exist. Anyway, let's talk about what happens now if somebody violates this protected health information email block policy that we put in place here. So how it works is data lock is automatically going to, with our algorithm, scan all outgoing emails for our patient health information query with all the appropriate regex expressions and terms that we're searching for here. Okay. So we're going to scan that metadata, and if a policy violation is detected, the action is going to be blocked at the browser. Action is also going to be blocked at the mail server. And this is what the end user is going to see if they violated that PHI information monitor and block that we put in place here. So they'll see the policies they violated, the description of the policy that we already configured. Now, I remember before I kept that request override toggle on. The reason for that is there could be scenarios in specific departments where occasionally you may need to push this information out to somebody internally, whatever. No problem. They request an override. They have a side email or phone conversation with the manager or the compliance officer. The compliance officer goes in and approves the request. As you can see here, you can just simply add some notes to this. We see the policy that were violated. We see the details and metadata that tripped up the policy. No big deal. In any event, all the policy violations, that being said, will be here in this event manager. Okay, and we can drill down into this. We can add additional columns. We can see the actual monitoring group as an example. We can see the user based on AD credentials, okay, number of violations, the severity, the status, okay, whether the action was blocked, pending override, a violation being detected, okay, you name it. So that's an example of our data loss prevention module here. Now I want to go back in and just talk about some of the other capabilities we have from a policy generation perspective. Okay, we can also block information from being sent up via wildcard query, similar to what we talked about with this alert word stuff that we've been going over ad nauseum here. We can also block this based on file types. So if there are specific file types that you want to block, our categories here pretty much encompass every single file type out there in creation, so you can block specific file types from being sent up to anything with a drive letter attached to it. That could be a printer with a storage drive embedded in it as an example. In any event, we can block that content from being sent up. Okay. We can also do an all or none approach here, where we can disable somebody's ability to write up information to anything hooked into your USB with a drive letter attached to it. We can also do a read and write approach here. We can block them from being able to not only write content up to a device with a drive letter attached to it, but also read what's on that drive as well. Okay. The data at rest policy is unique to us and also very important. Let's say you have a scenario where, and we're not going to go through the how we set up a UNC path policy. We can do that offline some other time. But let's say there was a mistake setting up a specific path delineation and being able to set up the appropriate monitors for that via the firewall rules. Well, let's say John in sales and marketing somehow got access to the root folder for all the development code, the new OS release of the firewall as an example, and he basically decides to pull that onto his target device. Well, based upon certain queries that we can set up, certain strings that we can search for, the alert word, we could potentially find that data on his machine at rest, meaning it hasn't gone off the device, but it's still sitting there, and that's something that we want to address as well. And that's going to lead me, and again, an alert notification could be set up for that, but that's going to lead me into a discussion now about our laptop cop module. So that's a perfect segue into that. So let's say via that data at rest policy, we found that somebody had sensitive information sitting in their Dropbox folder, okay, with laptop cop installed on here. We can go in here, and the agent actually takes a virtual scan of the file folder partitioning system of the target device, and then we can go in and, based upon that map, if you will, you can go in and literally pull that offending information off the target device. So in this case right here, I'm going to go to Dropbox, and let's say that file was in his Dropbox folder. Obviously nothing's in here. We can actually go in there and pull that information off of it, which is really cool, remotely and stealthily. In addition, with this module, we can geolocate the device if it's out there in the field. If you have a remote employee, as an example, this does come up, from a InfoSec perspective. You have a remote employee who's responsible for some very sensitive, classified security operations inside your organization. He says he's going to Colorado Springs for a 2-week stretch, but you decide to log in 3 days later, and you find that his machine is reporting from a Wi-Fi signal in Romania. That might be something you may want to talk with him about, as an example. Okay. We can also go in here and take control of the device. Okay. You can start monitoring every single bit of activity that the person is conducting on the device if the device has been stolen. From a file deletion perspective, we can wipe the operating system on this thing and brick it. So there's a lot of different things we can do with this product. It's a nice add-on to really round out the full package security capabilities of our solution. So believe it or not, we're almost done. Any questions on what you've seen so far?
Not for me.
Oh, Josh?
Not here.
Excellent. So the final thing I want to talk about here is, again, just a brief caveat on antivirus exclusions. We pretty much play well with pretty much every single antivirus vendor out there from an exclusion perspective. The only one we do not work with is Bitdefender. Fortunately, we're not compatible for a few reasons. I'm not going to go into the technical reason why that is, but they're very difficult to work with, and we've tried to reach out to them to fix this and get our product whitelisted appropriately, but it's not happening at this point. I mean, we may do a more aggressive outreach to them, but I think I have a friend of mine who works at Bitdefender. I think they're located in Romania. If memory serves me correctly, I was talking to him last year, and I said, well, how did it go with the training? And he's like, well, they flew me out to Romania. I said, Romania? I said, you had to go out to Romania for the training? We couldn't do it in the United States? So, interesting stuff. So, that's pretty much it, guys. I think, hopefully, I did a good job of articulating, what this product does and some very specific use cases around it. I know we crafted this initially around the HIPAA stuff, but as you can see, there's a lot of different ways to utilize this tool, and the great part about it is it's extremely flexible, very easy to deploy and set up policies and configure. So, any thoughts? I'm open to questions right now.
I'm trying to think of any. Well, seems like this can do a whole lot. I don't know.
Yeah, it's big. So what were we thinking about from a next steps perspective, Josh? I know we're talking about 550 endpoints. Did you want Ron and I to get you a quote encompassing the capabilities that you saw here today to just take a look at what that would look like from a budgetary number, and in terms of being able to shore up the HIPAA patient health information perspective at the endpoints, what was your timeline on fixing this vulnerability?
Well, everything had to be turned in for this upcoming budget year, the 1st of September. So we kind of missed that, but I guess it would depend on.
Yeah, do you have any extra budget running, lurking around through the end of the year?
Our new year starts November 1, and everything.
Okay.
September 1st, but I guess first I'd probably need to see the pricing. I don't know what kind of breakdown it's per PC. Is that right?
It would be. Are you guys? Well, in this case, it seems like your environment is device set. Are you guys running terminal services? You hear me?
No.
Okay, so it would be by device then. It would be by device.
Okay. So I guess.
So the question I would have then is how many Windows-based devices are we looking at here?
Let me try to give you an accurate number in just a second.
All right.
Um, 518 is what we have, so we're probably going to add more. So it'd probably be closer to 575 or 6.
575 or 6?
Yeah, we're finishing, like I was talking about earlier, that building, and a lot of people are going to move in with their existing. I have a new nurses station, nursing wing, and a dialysis wing. So I would say 575 to 6 would be a safe number.
Okay, we'll start with 6 just to play it safe. Obviously, you guys are going to host this internally.
Well, I guess that would also depend on pricing.
Okay. Well, we'll make you a good deal. Don't worry about that. So 600 Windows endpoints, hosting internally. What Ron and I are going to do is later on this afternoon, we're going to be working out some quotes here for you on this, on the capabilities you saw, and we can drill down, of course, after that, and see where it takes us. Now, do you want to demo this product so you can test this out internally?
Well, first let's get the pricing, see if it's even anywhere potentially where we could get it in. But another question was about support and training.
I heard a lot of feedback in the background. Can you hear me, Josh?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I was asking support wise and training. There'd be a lot of situations where you need assistance in figuring out the best way to do something there, but that included in licensing or?
We can get you a quote. I'm going to make it a separate quote on training for you guys. So just stand by on that. The first quote you're going to get from us is the core breakdown of the product, and then there's some special SKUs that I can pull up on this. So Ron and I will work all that out together. You'll probably be seeing two separate quotes from us, one for the actual product and a separate one for the training, potentially for this. And again, like I said, you're going to get white glove platinum treatment from us to help make sure that this is deployed appropriately, and the full support, of course, as well. So.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, I'll be in touch, Josh.
All right, thank you.
All right, Josh, real quick, just so I have your information, let me just send you an email real quick. It's going to be important from a quoting perspective. Stand by. I have j.truitt at rhrcc.org.
That's correct.
Checking. I'm going to send you my contact information. If you could reply back to that would be great.
Okay.
Then Ron and I are going to be working on getting you numbers this afternoon, no later than Monday, depending upon how long it takes our distributor partner Flying Tech to get Ron a quote. So Monday, probably no later than Tuesday. We're going to be working on this diligently over the next couple of days. Just to So that's all I have, guys. Anything else or we wrap up?
Email hasn't came through yet.
Just sent it right now. Tell me when you do.
Okay.
Did you get it?
No.
Yep, we're good.
I got it.
You got it. Okay, perfect. We'll fly back to that, and Ron and I are going to work on pricing for you. So all I can say is thank you so much for joining us today. We're looking forward to a great partnership with you guys, and like I said, we'll just keep moving the ball along here. So have a great weekend, and would you like a copy of this presentation, Josh? I did record it, so you can refer back to it.
That'd be fine. Wouldn't hurt.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to get that. Let me just parse that out. Hopefully I'll have that Monday or Tuesday for you. I just got to run it through my video converter. So.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks.